I often talk about TikTok, social media being a highlight reel, being quite fake. However, I don't always think that's the case, and I do think from time to time we do come across some sometimes brutally honest content about what some people's lives are like. And nothing is truer, I think, in that regard than the content that we see that's being put out from women all around the world relating to dating in 2024, or at least even just attempting to date in 2024.
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
There's actually a growing number of women vocalizing how they are just completely choosing to opt out of dating and opting out of whatever this show is that we call the modern world of dating. And whether that just be temporarily or whether that be indefinitely, I really wanted to talk about it with you today. Before we get started, just some housekeeping and one or two disclaimers. Yes, I'm wearing glasses. My optometrist, she said I need to start wearing my glasses more. And the disclaimer being, I am a woman, duh. So this is going to be a little bit biased. I'm gonna completely admit that today's video is going to be biased, and to some of you throughout today's video, I may sound like an angry, raging feminist, which I don't necessarily know if I identify as that. There are some studies I'm going to be talking about in today's video, and I mean especially right now, that I just want you to know that please take them with a grain of salt. I think it's just fun to talk about. However, there are so many conflicting studies and conflicting research findings that I came across, and I also think there are so many variables that aren't really considered, and especially in regards to when we try to measure happiness. However, I have seen research that shows that, you know, single women are happier than married women, and that men typically are happier when they're in a relationship, and it tends to be better for their overall well-being to be married and to be coupled off. So like I said though, I mean, I would take that with a grain of salt. However, I do find this very fun and very interesting to talk about. And I fully acknowledge that I didn't live, nor did I date through, you know, the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. But, you know, I don't know what it was like back then, but the general consensus from women in 2024 is it's rough. I actually posted on my Instagram just a few days ago while actually researching for this video. I wanted to hear from a lot of you your experiences with dating in 2024. And I had a variety of responses, mainly from women because that's what I asked for, but I also had a few responses from men. And the overwhelming response was pretty much negative. I also had the odd message from a married woman who said that she had been married for X amount of years. However, she couldn't imagine trying to date now. So that is just the general consensus, and you'll see this on social media, you'll see this on TikTok, people sharing their experiences with dating in 2024.
I had a little cry earlier, and I had a big cry last night.
Yeah.
But I'm not crying now.
You're not?
And I think for that,
Yeah.
I'm doing so well.
Today's video there's not going to be this grand solution, or it's not going to be a checklist of things you have to do or we can do to solve this problem. I really just wanted to take the time to acknowledge the women that I'm seeing on social media, and also just vent with you about the current landscape for women. So I'm currently listening to a book at the moment called I Don't by Clementine Ford. It's really giving like major angry feminist vibes, like 100%, I'm fully acknowledging that. But I'm enjoying listening to it, even though I may not necessarily agree with everything. I am also finding myself chuckling at her humor, and I am really enjoying listening to this book. So I highly recommend, you know, sometimes it's good whether or not you identify as a feminist, you don't identify as a feminist. I do think that it's good to read and engage in a variety of opinions from a variety of different people. I think it helps to kind of balance us out. This video was actually inspired by a TikTok that I came across just a few days ago. And it is in regards to a movement that has pretty much exploded in South Korea and has made its way onto TikTok. And that is called the 4B movement. And if you're not familiar with that, I'm just going to basically give you a really basic summary, because keep in mind, I am not well versed in the history of Korea, and I'm also not incredibly well versed in the political climate. And in a nutshell, the 4B movement is a group of women who are not even necessarily trying to fight patriarchy. They're basically just trying to remove themselves from it and treating this as a protest. So the 4B movement, there are literally 4 Bs, and each of these words starts with BI, or in Korean it translates to no. So I'm not even going to try to to say these words because I'm pretty sure I am going to butcher them. But basically, the first one is no marriage, no sex with men, no child rearing, and no dating men. So they are the 4 Bs.
So we've just decided we're gonna stop dating men. There's really no benefit to it, as we don't need men anymore for housing or security because we have our own money and our own jobs. And we really have just decided that unless a man is going to improve our lives, there's really no need to include one in it.
Oh, you know what? I'm so tired of you women. You're all so disrespectful. Like, how can you even say that you don't want men?
How is simply not being with a man disrespectful to them?
You know what? You're ugly anyway. We didn't want you anyway. You're the ones that we didn't want. You hit the wall. You're left over. We don't even want you.
If all of the women that are participating in 4B are women that you weren't interested in anyway, then why are you so upset?
Just go die alone with your cats then, cat lady.
That's literally what we said we would prefer. That's correct.
I think it's so funny that Korean women are so done with Korean men that they're literally just deciding to die out. Y'all heard of the 4B movement? I'm a big fan. Korean women literally just gave up on their men. They're like, they're they're not gonna change, so we're all gonna go extinct. Like, Korean as an ethnicity is about to go away, and Korean women are literally just like...
In Korea, traditional gender roles are very much entrenched, and violence against women is currently very high, also I've been reading. Recently in Korea, according to news articles that I've came across, there have been quite a number of high-profile deaths and murders. One particular woman was actually murdered in a bathroom by a young man. According to news articles, there are unequal penalties of men committing crimes like revenge porn and spy cam sex crimes, traditional gender roles, violence against women, and just basically unequal penalties that men and women are experiencing. This movement is getting worldwide exposure on TikTok, and many women are actually sharing their frustrations about the current climate of men and the dating sphere. And these are women from all around the world. So if you actually want to go check out, I mean, I'll probably have some of these comments and some of these videos up here for you, but it's wild, but I suppose it's equally quite comforting if you are a single woman right now. I also think it's worth noting that South Korea currently has the lowest birth rate in the world. And believe it or not, according to my research, on a worldwide scale, the rate of growth actually peaked in the 1960s, and the world population has actually been in decline since then. And if you were to ask yourself, like, why exactly this is, I'm going to be touching on a variety of reasons in today's video, but I think the landscape for dating is just one of them. Here are just some fun facts that I came across. Millennials value freedom and independence. That's why 72% make a conscious decision to be single for a period of time. That is a statistic that came out of Tinder research. Another statistic that came out of Tinder says that 81% say that being single benefits them beyond their romantic lives, as they're able to make new friends, have more time for personal wellness, and be more dedicated to their work. And I think ultimately there are a few key reasons why women are remaining single longer, or just choosing to completely opt out of the dating scene. And I want to get into those reasons, and I also want to share a lot of the sentiment and a lot of the opinions that were raised on my Instagram story that I posted. Again, thank you so much for those who chose and who took the time to actually vent to me about what dating was like for them in 2024. But I think it really comes down to, in a nutshell, a lot of women would rather be single than be with someone who they don't deem to be equal to them. And I think a lot of women would rather be single than to be with someone who they feel adds no value to their life. Now that may sound super harsh, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments down below, if you resonate with that, if you don't, but that was kind of the overall pattern that I saw, not only from the videos that I've seen on TikTok, but also the women that vented to me in my Instagram DMs. I do think that is a common question that women are finding harder and harder to answer about a lot of the men that they come in contact with. Will this man add any value to my life? With women now being able to work and support themselves financially, women are now able to do a lot more for themselves independently than they ever have been before. You know, we now live in a world where women can work, women can gain employment, women can financially take care of themselves, women can own land. Women can even now, I mean, it's quite hard, let me know in the comments down below if you have an experience with this, but women can now even have children. Obviously you still need the sperm, but you know, it can be done without a man present in your life. You know, you can have a child, you can raise a child without a man. I think women are able to achieve a lot more than ever before. So I think for a lot of women, you know, when it comes down to, will this man or does this man add any value to my life? It's quite a hard question to answer. Yes, they may add value in the sense of company, but for a lot of women who have existing communities, who have family, who have friendship circles, maybe the company that they're receiving from this so-called man they're dating doesn't quite match up. I think for past generations of women, it was pretty much essential for women's survival, and if it wasn't essential, it was just even, you know, kind of necessary for more comfortable living. I think finding a husband, having children was something that women of past generations felt a lot of pressure to do, and I do think that even now that pressure is still put onto women to do it, and to do it quickly. You know, that body clock, that time is ticking, is what we're told. I think this is still something that women are expected to experience and do in society. Whether or not you want a husband and you want a family or you don't, and you feel that pressure to hurry up and find someone, think about how much worse it was for women before us, women that came before us. I can imagine that the pressure would have been suffocating.
Educational films like this one reflect society's belief that women could find fulfillment only as housewives and mothers.
Women have a larger stake in the workforce. You know, as you can see in this graph, employment for women has just been slightly increasing over time, very steadily, and now a lot of women are working 40 hours a week. I absolutely acknowledge that this is not the case for every woman. There is still this rhetoric and this common belief that women are still expected to do a large amount of the domestic labor and carry that load. And studies back this up. The research supports this. I think I read in quite a few studies, I mean, it varied slightly, but the general consensus was that women do on average between, I think, 1.5 to 2.5 extra hours of domestic labor a day compared to their male counterparts. And other than the disproportionate load of domestic labor that women are carrying, it's also for a lot of women, I think, the mental load that they're carrying. I think I saw one woman on a Reddit thread use the example of, you know, it's nice that he paid the bills for the month, or it's nice that he did the dishes, but it's the fact that I had to remind him, and if I didn't remind him, they would have went unwashed or the bills would have went unpaid. So it's that mental load for a lot of women. And I'm absolutely going to acknowledge that I'm aware that a lot of women do love, you know, domestic duties. A lot of women love cleaning. They find it mindful, they find it relaxing. But I think where a lot of women are taking issue with potentially finding a partner and kind of settling into this life is working, you know, 40 to 50 hours a week, having to do a disproportionate amount of domestic labor, also dealing with all that, birthing children, raising the children. It can be a lot. It can be a lot. This video's also got me thinking. I was pondering just this idea, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments down below, because there's also like this argument that, well, women just enjoy more of this, like this is more important to them, it's more of a priority of them. But I do think that it's interesting that so much personal development in terms of like relationship and dating advice is so much more targeted and heavily marketed towards women. There are like male dating coaches or even female dating coaches for men, but the audience is not as big, and I feel like there is just so much more out there for women, and, you know, just strategies on how to get the guy, or how to, you know, what to say when he says this, or what to do when he does this. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I just find all that so exhausting. And I mean, ask me again next week, or maybe one of you can change my mind in the comments down below, but it's like, I don't want to have to do all that. Like, I don't want to have to play games. I don't want to have to do all this in order to like get the guy. Because if I just can't be myself, if I can't just like be myself, and if it's not this strategic chess game, like I don't know if I want it. Like I think it should be easy in a sense. I don't think I should have to like play cool or play hard to get, or like act in a certain way, or just like follow a certain script, or, you know, oh my god, he sent me that, what does that mean? I need to like find out what that means and then reply with this. It's exhausting.
Is it easy? No. Do I like it? No, I don't. But do I do it? Yeah, I do.
And I think there's just so much more of that out there for women than there is for men, which makes me think, is it because women care about it more? Is it because they need it more? I don't think so. In an alternate universe, if more men engaged in this self-development, this dating coaching, would they be better? Would it be better? I wonder. Men going to therapy is only really something that I think's within the last 5 years been kind of more normalized. I still think maybe there's a bit of stigma around it, but I do think it's been more normalized. And I do think that a common theme and a common thing that I was told in my DMs was, you know, just these women are just sick of dealing with these broken men, you know, men who can't communicate, men who are damaged and this, that and the other. And I completely acknowledge that if you're a human being and you're alive right now and you're watching this, you have issues. Okay, we all do. We've all seen some shit. Okay, we have. But I think for a lot of women, it's almost frustrating when, you know, they've done all this work, they've put all this work into themselves, and they're meeting these men who can't communicate, who have these, you know, emotional issues or just have these things they haven't dealt with. I do think a lot of the times these men that attend therapy and that, you know, openly go to therapy, sometimes I do think that a large number of them, it's something that's been encouraged by maybe a woman in their life. Another common thing that I noticed in my DMs and just viewing life through my lens, I just see so many women who have put the work into themselves, who are incredible, who, yes, have issues like everybody does, but, you know, have good communication skills, have worked on themselves, have become such a good version of themselves, probably the best version of themselves they've ever been. And just men aren't meeting them there. Men aren't at that same level. A lot of them don't know how to express their feelings, don't know how to communicate, are dealing with past issues from past relationships, then they don't even realize that it's standing in their way. I do wonder if more men, first of all, dealt with some of their issues and took part in more regular therapy, or even just watched more, you know, dating videos and just videos on just bettering themselves, would dating be easier for women? I don't know. I think in a lot of cases the bar has been raised for men, and rightfully so, but I think a lot of them just can't meet it. They can't reach it. I'm not married, I don't have children, but I acknowledge that because I've seen it in my life. It's hard, I think. I personally think that nothing in life like that is easy. It's probably incredibly rewarding, but it's hard, it's a challenge. Raising children is not meant to be easy. And I think on top of that, having to do all the domestic duties and also going to work, God, makes it 10 times harder. And doing that with a partner who is not supportive and is not meeting you halfway and is not, you know, doesn't bring much to the table in a sense, I think that would make it unbearably suffocatingly hard. And I think a lot of women want to avoid that potential resentment, which is why they're you know, getting married later, or if not at all, and just putting off these things. And, you know, I do hate this trope that we see online. I hate this trend we see online of, you know, these, God, I've even probably screenshotted some comments, but it's like these videos that tell women, you know, we're constantly told, like, you better hurry up, like your biological clock, you better have and find someone, you better, you know, you're in your 30s, you better hurry up, no one's going to want you when you're 40, no one's going to want you, you're not going to have kids and this, that and the other. And it's like, can we just acknowledge that even for the women who want to get married and want to have children, just because you want those two things, it doesn't even necessarily mean it's guaranteed. It's slim picking out there, it's hard. I think that's why for a large growing number of women, you know, they are choosing one or the other, or maybe they're just delaying certain things, you know, like, and I'm not saying, this is not my way of saying, like, you can't have it all, in the sense, like, you know, if you want to be married, if you want to have kids, if you want to have a career, you can of course do all those things, of course you can. A big reason why a large number of women are choosing one or the other, especially in their 30s, is because they recognize that as much as they may want to find someone, as much as they may want to experience love and get married or have children, maybe they haven't found someone who's worth doing that with yet. It's unfortunate, but people aren't meeting in real life as much anymore. And a common theme in my DMs, in my messages, was just this lack of respect, lack of manners, a level of immaturity, and just generally odd behavior that you come across on these dating apps from these men.
His job is listed as delivery at DoorDash. This man's 44. We just need to take a second, because if this guy was 24, I'd be like, you know what, sure. 44, and you're doing a bit about DoorDash. Let's read it. Boyfriend not buying you food or bringing you question mark? Introducing DoorDash. This is like a rejected SNL sketch, but let's keep reading. I show up at your door in 30 minutes or less with food and and if your boyfriend shows up, you get a free upgrade to Dash. Can you imagine? Well, honey, your father at 44 put up a hilarious profile saying that he really wanted to show up with some and I said, wow.
I think it's also made it difficult because I think back in the day, and just, I mean, even now, like when you occasionally meet someone in real life, you get like the 4D experience, you get the general vibe that you just don't get through this like artificial drip feeding, you know, like these online dating apps, you just don't get it as much as they try really hard. Like I think, was it Hinge or something that kind of added like voice, you can put your voice in or whatever, I don't know. It still is not the same thing. Back in the day when it was a lot more common for men to pursue women, it was a lot easier to get a bit more of a general vibe and a general sense of who someone was when you meet them in real life. And if you have a man that approaches you in real life, a lot of the time it kind of shows that there's like that level of, it's a bit more serious, I personally think. And I think with just the kind of swiping that we see nowadays, it's made people feel a lot more disposable. And it's, I think, made it a lot harder for men to want to approach women, because it's that fear of rejection that has gotten stronger. Everybody has a fear of rejection. I mean, it's kind of a scary thing to experience. And I think this online dating has made it a little bit less enticing for men to want to approach a woman, because in his pocket, he's got a phone with the illusion of a potential 100 matches that he could find and just meet people that way, which, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion we could have, like this illusion of choice. I think a lot of people experience this, men and women, but this illusion that they have so many choices on social media, so many choices on these dating apps, when in actual fact, there's only a small number of people that you connect with that you have the same values, morals, and actually hit it off with. So really, this illusion of having so many options, it's kind of an illusion, because it may look like you have so many options. It may look like the apple tree has so many good juicy apples on them, but really at the end of the day, there's maybe only 1 or 2 of them there. I love how I'm like reducing people to fruit, but you know, there's only maybe 1 or 2 apples that are ripe and ready to go and you actually vibe with, and it's just like the juiciest, most beautiful, tastiest apple you've ever eaten. This is a weird analogy, but it's this illusion of choice, and I think that's what's delaying people, and that's what's making a lot of people think of dating is just not as serious. And that's another general consensus that I saw. You know, a lot of people on these apps, they're not looking for anything serious. You know, I had one woman who was like, yeah, like I'm, 40, 45, and I'm looking at men on these dating apps and they're 45, and on their little bio thing it says not sure what I'm looking for, and it's like, you're 45, like how do you not know what you're looking for at 45? Like, one book I want to actually recommend to you, if you are someone who genuinely have opted out of the dating scene, maybe you're like, why give up? But maybe deep down you actually do want to find someone. Maybe deep down you do want to experience love. There's this book that I actually read. I came across an interview with this particular woman on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and I bought her book because I thought she was incredible. Logan Ury, and the book is called How Not to Die Alone. I do recommend it to a lot of single women who I meet in real life. There's a few little comments that I wanted to kind of end on today that some of them I'd love to hear your thoughts on. Maybe you disagree, maybe you agree with them. And some of them I just think sum up the discussion perfectly. This first one I want to read to you. I want to know what you think, and I'd love to hear your opinion. In my opinion, I think women are rapidly outpacing men in every regard, and it's getting harder and harder to meet equals and to get married. You have to settle. Women have been held to ridiculously high standards for a while, and men have not had the same level of scrutiny placed on them. We have both adapted to these bars. I've lived my whole life not settling, and it's worked for me, so I will try to remain that outlook. I'd love to know what you think about that. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that as women, we have been held to a higher standard? We've been scrutinized more than men. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd like to hear your thoughts. This is this other one I want to read to you. Women weren't married in years past because they wanted to be or were happy. They didn't have a choice. Women couldn't even get their own credit card until 1974. By the way, I actually fact-checked that, and that's true in the United States. That's my lifetime, this particular woman said. And in that, no-fault divorce wasn't an option until about 1970. And that workplaces could, in practice, still discriminate against women until a Supreme Court decision in 1986. And the women didn't have a lot of options. And once they were married, they didn't have many options but to stay married. The truth is that most of our mothers and grandmothers weren't happily married for 50 years. Married, yes, happily, not so much. Now that women can do and earn their own money, have more control over their circumstances, and have other options, they're choosing not to be married. It doesn't benefit women. There's actual data showing that single, childless women are happier than married women. So less women are choosing to get married. And unhappily married women are more likely to get divorced. Women initiate 78% of all divorces in the US. Now look, again, if you're a married woman, please do not be triggered by this. I don't know if this is true. This is potentially just cherry picking data, isn't it? But there is maybe some truth to this in the sense that, if you're a woman right now and you're happily married, that's fantastic. But you've also got to acknowledge that there's a lot of bad apples out there, okay? Not every woman gets to find a loving, beautiful, amazing, wonderful husband. I mean, there is potentially the possibility that there are a lot of unhappily married people and people in relationships out there because it's hard to find somebody who meets their standard. This is another one that I thought was really interesting that I wanted to read to you. I think sometimes it's good to get like an older perspective, even if it is from a, you know, anonymous person on Reddit. I'm 58 and I have been with my husband for 36 years. But even in my time, finding a good man was extremely difficult. I got lucky, very, very lucky. My husband is amazing, but I had to work hard to find him and then endure a long-distance relationship in order to finally be with him. I think the main difference between now and then is that women don't need to marry to support themselves financially, as they once did, and there are more jobs open to them, which pay well, even if they are still paid less than men in the same jobs. Also, society doesn't expect women to marry or label them old maids. Keep in mind that I was 22 in 1986, and my mother was hinting that I would end up an old maid. Most of the women I grew up with either married a guy they dated in high school, often after he got them pregnant, but not always, and never left my hometown or married and then divorced. The ones who married a high school sweetheart seem to be fairly satisfied, at least outwardly. I think part of what I've noticed is that the expectation in modern relationships is that both parties will enter the relationship / married fully formed. In the past, we expected to work on each other to finish raising one another and grow, hopefully together in maturity. I just want to quickly interject. I think that's a very good point. I think it's a very good point. And I think the older you get, it's harder to find someone because maybe you don't want to raise them. You don't want to, you know, help them figure out their in a lot of senses. You know, especially if you're a woman who's done a lot of work on themselves, you want somebody who's kind of at that level. And I think of back to my grandparents, back to my parents' generation, they were very young. They were very young when they got married. They kind of just like got together, helped each other figure it out, and probably helped, you know, raise each other in a sense, and, you know, help each other grow up and grow out of certain habits that just weren't benefiting them or the relationship. And I wonder if that's something that people just don't have the patience for anymore. I think there is also an issue with younger people having an extended childhood, whereas people from earlier generations were expected to start acting like adults before they even finish high school. That's no way a judgment thing, but I think a lot of immature young men are out there because they were never given much responsibility until they moved out of the house, if they moved out. And it's fundamentally changed the way men act and expect to be cared for in relationships, but not women, as women continue to bear the brunt of most relationships and household responsibilities. I think there was also a clear separation of responsibilities in the past, which was both a blessing and a curse. Women from my generation genuinely were happy to raise kids and do household work as part of their role as long as their husbands made money, took care of the lawn and heavy work, and fixed cars and household problems. Men knew what was expected of them, and they were less likely to drop the ball on those things for fear of being seen as bad by other men. And just to be clear, I don't think men were in any way better back then. They likely were worse, my husband excluded from that. But just that what was seen as good for a man was very different than now. The bar is set higher for men now, and they generally aren't able to meet it, let alone get over it. I thought that was a very interesting comment, and I wanted to leave it on that. And I'm well aware that this video has just been a really giant rambling rant. Like, I told you, okay, we're not solving anything in here. I just wanted to really rant to you. And I hope that maybe if you are single, I really hope that you just found some comfort in today's video, and it was a nice venting session. You know, maybe you don't have anyone to vent about your dating life with, so, you know, feel free to just drop your comments below or DM me. If there's anything I didn't mention, didn't bring up, oh my god, I feel like there's so much I didn't bring up, but this would have literally been like a 90-minute movie. But, you know, even things that I'm thinking of, like there's certain things that I saw, certain conversations being had online about the reason men of this generation are the way they are is the way they were brought up. You know, how different the expectation is of parenting for men, or for boys versus girls, and that's a whole nother conversation. Like, literally, this video could have literally been a 2-hour friggin' movie. But I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I'm really excited to hear from you in the comments down below. I'm gonna have another few links for you here if you want to check those out. I'm taking these glasses off now. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I will see you in my next one.